Hello， 大家好，欢迎回到外媒看中国，我是安博然。US President Donald Trump has come out with another absolutely delusional social media rant about China, which he claims was on the brink of collapse before the two countries agreed to reduce tariffs in Switzerland earlier this month. 2 weeks ago, China was in grave danger, he fantasized online, before suggesting he saved the 1.4 billion people of this country, before lamenting about being Mr. Nice Guy. Trump, my friend, Chinese people find you to be a very entertaining and funny man, but they're laughing at you and not with you, sir. This comes as the Trump administration promises a court that it will refund all of the Liberation Day tariffs they've collected from Americans and American businesses since April 12, if the Supreme Court finds them to be illegal. You heard me right, they are promising to pay back all of those taxes to the people of the United States, which is a tacit admission that it is indeed Americans who are paying for Trump's tariffs, not China and not anyone else. There's a lot to unpack today, so let's get started and go beyond the propaganda. This is Reports on China. I'm Andy Boreham here in Shanghai. Let's get reporting. TARCO. That's a new acronym that's doing the rounds on social media and getting under the skin of US President Donald Trump. It stands for Trump Always Chickens Out and accuses him of acting tough but not sticking to his threats when it turns out they're not working out how he hoped. Which, let's be honest, is 99% of the time. Ever since Trump started his Liberation Day tariff scam on April 2, and despite claiming to be making deals with 200 countries, he's only managed to come to a deal with one, the US's main ally, the United Kingdom. And he is not happy about it, ranting on social media like a jilted lover whenever the mood takes him. And yesterday, his rant was about China, when he claimed to have saved this massive country from the brink of destruction, before lamenting about being too nice and claiming that China was going against its agreement. Let's take a read. He sobbed. 2 weeks ago, China was in grave danger. Many factories closed and there was, to put it mildly, civil unrest. I saw what was happening and didn't like it. For them, not for us. I made a fast deal with China in order to save them from what I thought was going to be a very bad situation. And I didn't want to see that happen. Because of this deal, everything quickly stabilized and China got back to business as usual. Everybody was happy. That is the good news. The bad news is that China, perhaps not surprisingly to some, has totally violated its agreement with us. So much for being Mr. Nice Guy. Okay, where to start? Firstly, the obvious. Trump did not save China. His tariffs are barely felt here at all, mainly because Chinese people just do not consume large amounts of American goods. And those it does consume, like Apple products, Tesla cars, and so on, are all produced right here in China, and therefore not affected by the tariffs. Chinese people didn't see inflation, price increases on daily goods like eggs, or anything of the sort. What politicians in the West, who only seem to plan ahead for the next election cycle, don't realize is that China has been preparing for this for years and years, and is well placed to weather any storm Trump throws its way. Secondly, there was no civil unrest in China based on Trump's tariffs. Factories did not close, they changed gears. They found new markets and new ways. This is the thing, Chinese people are extremely resilient. Whereas Americans might become depressed and give up at the first signs of a huge struggle, Chinese people are revitalized by challenges. Case in point, Vietnam. Now, their factories have seen a massive uptick in Chinese cooperation recently because basically, in light of US tariffs on Chinese goods, those Chinese factories in effect extended their production processes to include Vietnam as the final step. Nearly finished goods are quickly shipped south to Vietnam, finished off in Vietnamese factories, and then shipped on to the US. Done and dusted. Now to the biggest claim, and that China is somehow going back on its deal with the US that was agreed in Geneva a few weeks ago. Well, that, shock horror, is also not true. All China agreed to do was lower tariffs and enter talks with the US over the following 90 days to come to a permanent agreement. But after that, the Trump administration ramped up its anti-China rhetoric, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying he will specifically target Chinese students wanting to study in the United States, as just one example. Because of that, the Chinese side has clearly pulled back from tariff talks with Washington, D.C. for the time being. There was no other deal, and Trump knows that full well. Or maybe he doesn't. China, through all of this, has demanded respect from the US side before any significant agreement will come to fruition. Sure, they clearly got that in Geneva a few weeks ago, but that is not enough. The Trump administration ramping up its McCarthy-esque attacks on Chinese students of late is not respectful, and China will not put up with it. Trump is learning that the hard way. And he's still begging President Xi for a phone call, a call which is definitely not going to come. After the Geneva talks, Trump told reporters that he hoped to speak with President Xi within the week. That did not happen. In fact, no call has occurred between Trump and President Xi since before he was sworn in as president the second time around. And it's a call he is desperate for, but he needs to learn one thing. If you act like a petulant child, you cannot talk with the adults. Now, one aspect of Trump's tariff scam that he's tried to keep mum from US consumers is that it's actually them who need to pay his Liberation Day tariffs, and no one else. He's tried to deny that for weeks, but yesterday was forced to admit it to the courts while begging them to let him continue his scam as the case moves up to the appeals court. Basically, Trump's lawyers had to promise the court that they will refund the tariffs paid since April 2nd if the Supreme Court decides they were illegal. For some reason, mainstream media is not talking about this fact, but it is very significant because it goes to show that Trump knew well all along that his tariffs were paid by ordinary Americans and American businesses, not China, not anyone else. And if the Supreme Court decides Trump overstepped his authority by enacting said tariffs, the Trump administration has promised to refund each and every penny. Billions of dollars scammed out of ordinary Americans. A very interesting development, don't you think? And on that note, that will be it for today, you guys. But as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think the Supreme Court will decide Trump's tariffs are illegal? And will China and the US ever come to an agreement? Do let me know down below. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help the channel. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.